Morning, everyone. It's great to be back here again and moderate another panel for this year. My name is Drake Becksted. I am the Contracts Administrator and O&M Administrator for ISI Solar out of Central City. Today's presentation and panel is going to be challenges to meet record electrical growth. Today we have with us Lisa Hale from LES, Devin Meisinger from OPPD, and Nicole Sedlacek from NPPD. They'll be presenting today, and then once they're done, we'll have a moderation question for them, and we'll open the floor to any questions they have. So please.
I'm happy to be here today. My name is Lisa Hale. I'm Vice President of Customer Services at LES. So I'm a little different than the other folks on the panel here today in that economic development is one of the hats that we wear in my division as well as other areas of the company. So our topic, meeting record electrical growth, can mean a lot of things depending upon the size of your utility and the capacity constraints that you might have. So with that said, I will share with you what we view as large load and how that impacts LES and the decisions that we make. There we go. To get started with that, I thought I would start with a few facts about LES to help put things in perspective. First of all, we are a public utility that serves customers in Lincoln and Lancaster County, including villages of Prairie Home, Walton, the town of Waverly, as well as Cheney and Emerald. We also have approximately 150,000 customers. Half of our load comes from 130,000 residential customers, and the other half of our load comes from about 20,000 non-residential customers. We are governed by a 9-member appointed board. This is appointed by the mayor of the city of Lincoln, and they can serve up to 3 3-year terms. It looks like, I apologize if there's anyone else out in the audience, but we do have one of our board members, Karen Griffin, with us here today. And then the 4 and 5 bullets, the number of, we're the second largest retail utility in the state of Nebraska, and that is by the number of retail customers that we have. And then we're also the 23rd largest in the United States. And like many of the other utilities, we set a new peak record this summer. We actually set 2 of them. The highest one was on August 22nd, and that was 819 megawatts. So we're talking about perspective there. That was over a 4% increase for us from our peak load that was set way back in 2011. So that was substantial. So also a big factor when we're considering large loads that could potentially be coming to the city of Lincoln or anywhere else in our service territory is the decarbonization goal that was set by our board in November of 2020. This goal was set after extensive education and listening sessions with the public and with our board, and they came up with our goal that is aims to offset LES's carbon dioxide production from our generation portfolio by 2040. So that is a very aggressive goal, but it is in line also with our city's climate action plan, which is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2050. However, with that said, there's also a lot of factors that we have to consider in trying to get to that goal, not the least of which is system reliability. We need to maintain a reliable system. Obviously, environmental stewardship is high on the list, as well as financial impacts to our customers. Most specifically, our most vulnerable customers who are very impacted by rate increases, as well as existing contractual obligations. As all of you who are in the utility industry know, we have a lot of long-term contracts. And then we also want to watch advancements in technology, not only with generation and storage, but also carbon capture and other emerging technologies. We'll talk about that a little bit more on another slide when we get to our integrated resource plan. Next up, this is a brief look at LES's generation mix. I like to think of it as a third, a third, and a third. It's not exactly that, but it's very close. So as you can see, we have coal in 3 states. We have natural gas locally at 3 different plants here in Lincoln. And then we have renewables in South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, and Oklahoma. We have hydropower, landfill gas to energy here locally, as well as wind and solar. So our integrated resource plan was updated in 2022. And as you can see from the chart, it is actually has not been updated because this plan was completed in 2022. So it doesn't even reflect our newest peak load that occurred in August of this year. So the IRP is obviously informed by our decarbonization goal, but also includes other more specific prescriptive measures, one of which is maintaining our allotment of our Tier 1 wind, seeking to develop our allotment of Tier 1 solar. This is something that is on the horizon for us. Continuing our sustainable energy program and looking for any ways that we can implement new and innovative ways to make that program more robust and varied. Then we also want to maintain our fleet of natural gas resources. This is obviously very critical for reliability for us. And then we are continually monitoring the market regarding our coal resources and potential carbon capture technology. Just want to reemphasize that these plans are constantly evolving. We have many professionals throughout our organization that are keeping watch over all of the latest technologies and anything that comes available and anything that becomes more economically feasible for us. And this slide is more of a reference just to show that LES is currently not in a dire situation in terms of capacity. But as you can see with that line on the chart, it is very, very close. So folks in our power supply department, as well as in other areas of the company, are watching that very close. Part of that involves watching or working very closely with both our external customers as well as our internal staff to make sure that we're communicating about any potential new loads, which is the topic of this discussion, and staying in contact with those customers to ensure that we have the latest information from them whenever possible. Currently, LES is seeing substantial load growth in probably 3 primary areas, one of which is multifamily housing. If you've had an opportunity to drive around the city of Lincoln, there are apartments growing up everywhere. And by themselves, they're not a significant load, but when you add all of them together, they do become quite significant. And then we also are seeing industrial expansions. I don't know that there's necessarily a particular industry that we're seeing expansions with, but I would say mostly just industrial customers in general, as well as renovations and remodels. And then also, I just thought I would be remiss if I didn't mention supply chain issues. This is another reason why we have to work very closely with both our customers as well as our internal staff, because as everyone else is experiencing, we are seeing some significant supply chain issues. So communication, again, is key early and often. So to the meat of this conversation, this is kind of how LES looks at large loads. This likely differs from what is maybe you're going to hear from OPPD or NPPD, but this is where we're at right now. We do have a large load customer that has been announced, Google, and preliminary work has been done on their site just north of the interstate at 56th Street. And we do not have a completed agreement with them yet. What we have done is we've done our own internal studies. SPP has completed their studies. We have an agreement. and payment for, and we have ordered long lead time equipment. So that has been completed, but we are still in negotiations with them. And I would be remiss also if I did not emphasize the fact that above all, the most important thing that we are looking for when negotiating terms of a contract with these large customers is that we will not put LES or any of our customers at risk, either financially or regarding reliability. So that is our overarching goal and purpose. So with everything that we do with new or large loads, this is what we go back to. We do this in a number of ways: contractual agreements, rate structures, which I'll get to in a minute, and then also securitization of the investment. Any customer that has a load of greater or of 20 megawatts or greater for LES, it goes on our market energy rate. This rate was created several years ago when new large loads were starting to pop up in lots of areas. So this was a proactive approach that LES took to make sure that we mitigated the market risk with any of these potential customers. And then bullet 2, in terms of maintaining financial stability of the utility. Again, we have not only our rate structure, securitization, and contracts, but we also consult with bond counsel as well as rating agencies to ensure that anything that we're doing will not harm any of our excellent ratings in the financial markets. Bullet number 3, continuing to make progress towards our 2040 decarbonization goal. Obviously, anything that we do is with that in mind as well, so we are paying close attention to that. Bullet number 4 is probably, I would say, maybe the biggest difference that I see between us and NPPD and OPPD here in the state of Nebraska. Because we are a little smaller in terms of territory and not as spread out across the state, our economic development efforts are facilitated by me and with the hard work of a lot of folks throughout our company. So I essentially facilitate it, and then they go out and do the hard work. And then also we have a very close relationship with the Lincoln Partnership for Economic Development. And they handle pretty much anything regarding incentives or anything else that is not covered by either us or the city of Lincoln with the other utilities. Securing renewables for large loads. We've also had an uptick in customers that have corporate mandates or desires to become renewable or be served by all renewable loads. So we've met the immediate need by providing rec riders. So we will sell renewable energy credits to our customers, and quite frankly, a lot of them have taken us up on that. So that is one way that we are meeting the immediate need. And then also we're having conversations with several customers who want to have larger scale renewables behind the meter. And this is requiring a lot of communication, negotiation, and creative thinking, frankly, between both the customer and LES to ensure that our rates are fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory. And then finally, there are advantages. I know everybody gets nervous about having these large loads, but if constructed correctly and if you have all your safeguards in place, there are advantages to having those large loads, not the least of which is improvements to our facilities infrastructure. Then we do pay payment in lieu of tax to all of the communities, so they benefit from that. Then not only the cities, but the counties and the school districts benefit from that, as well as there's jobs. And depending upon what these large loads are, whether they're manufacturing or something else, they do bring jobs to our community. And typically they're higher paying jobs. And then philanthropy and investment in the communities in which they come. And then we've also seen several secondary businesses that come following a large load. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Devin, I believe.
Good morning, everybody. I think Lisa done such a good job. I don't know what Nicole and I got yet to say, but I'll try to make it as interesting as possible. So as mentioned earlier, I'm the manager of our economic development team at the Omaha Public Power District. I just recently was named the manager within the last 30 days or so. So I've been involved with economic development at OPPD for over 28 years of my 33 years. So I have a little bit of background when it comes to loads, especially what we're going through today at OPPD, which is a little different situation that Lisa's experiencing in Lincoln. So to get started, first I'd like to thank the Wind and Solar Group, the committee, to give me the opportunity to come up and speak a little bit about this topic today. And I'll give you a little background as we start here with OPPD, like Lisa did with LES. So we have a mission to provide affordable, reliable, and environmentally sensitive services to our customers. We are an elected board for Omaha Public Power District. We have over 5,000 square miles of service territory, which basically reaches from the Kansas border to the south all the way to the north above Blair into Burke County, 13 counties on the southeast side of the state. We're approximately serving, for population-wise, between 850 to 900,000, not customers, but people. And the way of customers, we're around that 360, 370,000 of metered customers. Currently, our generation mix, or our generation, is around 2,600 megawatts. And we have a very diverse mix currently with some of the stuff that you see up on the screen currently. And as I will mention, that OPPD, based on customer service, is the 12th largest public utility in the United States. So to give you a little bit of background on renewables. So currently we have over 1,000 megawatts of renewable energy in our system today. Based on retail energy sales, about 36% of all of our customers are receiving renewables through their bill of their utilities. One of the other things that we have done in Fort Calhoun, we put in a small 5 megawatt solar farm that was basically subscribed out to residential customers and was sold out within, I think it was a couple days. So it's been very successful. One of the things that's not on this chart that you don't see is we are actually in the process of partnering with a community near Utah to put in an 81 megawatt Platteview solar farm that'll be in operation next year. I will cover a little bit more on that as we get closer to the information related to our near-term generation plans. So we have strategic directives in the economic development arena that our board puts forth with strategic directives across our utility, economic development being one of those. Obviously, I've heard a leader before at OPPD state that power is probably just as important as basically the air you breathe and the water you drink. So it's very important for people to have electricity and have it when they turn their light switch on or whenever they need it. A lot of people don't think about electricity, but when it's not there, you get a lot of complaints and a lot of questions. So we work really closely with we partner with the State Department of Economic Development, Omaha Chamber, and there's a partnership within the Omaha Chamber that basically has 8 or 9 counties around that OPPD serves that we work with in partnership to determine the outcomes of the economic development and where we're going today. Back in 2019, when we were starting to see some of this large growth across our utility, we started to plan for some generation that we put in place. There was basically 600 megawatts of natural gas We have a natural gas plant in Sarpy County that's about 450 megawatts. And then we have another 150 megawatt plant that's up in northwest Omaha, sorry. And both of those are in the process of being built. We still have not received accreditation for generation yet on that through SPP, but we are hoping to hear something soon from that perspective. So we're seeing growth across our whole system, whether it be the urban, the rural, whatever it is that we're trying to try to attract to the Omaha Public Power District's area. And when I use the word attract, I use it kind of loosely. Over this last year and a half, when we've been noticing that we have not got the capacity to be able to serve some of these utilities, we have not put out the effort that we've had in the past of trying to recruit businesses to the Omaha Public Power District service territory. So during that time, as you've heard earlier this morning, the state of Nebraska is ranked #1 in grid reliability. And we are also in the top 5 of affordability for electric rates. So when any company that's looking to do a project across the United States sees that Nebraska has those two things, you can about imagine when the phone starts ringing. So there's been projects, I would say, in the neighborhood of, like Lisa had mentioned, 20 megawatts and below. We've got projects that are in the 100 to 200 megawatt type of environment. We also have 400, 600, and 1,200 megawatt projects that have come to us probably over the last 6 to 8 months. So it's been very unique and very challenging to work with some of those utility or those customers to be able to achieve those things. Just to give you a little background, probably within the last 5 years, we've actually seen quite a bit of growth. Some of that's due to the data center industry. As most of you are aware, we both have Meta and Google in our service territory and continue to grow. As far as other types of things, we have seen an uptick in almost 100 megawatts of growth in our service territory over the last couple of years. So it's very important for us to be able to get all that information together and be able to put together a plan for us to be able to serve those types of loads. The other thing that has been somewhat impactful for OPPD is because of some of the, extreme weather stuff we went through a couple of years ago with the polar vortex and some of that stuff. SPP has let utilities know that they need to start keeping more generation in place for actual reserve capacity. Previously, we were around 12% for a summer type of a resource reserve, and now we're around 15. And one thing that's actually even uptick that we haven't really, being a summer utility peaker, we haven't really worried about the winter side. But the winter now is becoming just as important as the summer, especially with all the electrification that's going on with a lot of companies. Recently, we've had a local company that's been in Omaha for many years that actually reached out to one of our C&I type reps to tell them that they were looking to electrify almost 18 megawatts of their plant within the next several years. The one thing that, as Lisa mentioned also with the supply chain issues that are happening, it's actually helped OPPD to try to help plan and give us a little bit more additional time to be able to serve some of these projects. So that even though it looks across as being a negative thing for us, it's actually helped OPPD out in our missions to try to get them online. So on this slide, we just want to talk a little bit about, we have a good mix in our pipeline of basically existing companies that need to grow, that have actually announced large projects that they would like to bring online, as well as economic development projects, as I mentioned earlier on, that have tried to reach out to see how they could grow in OPPD service territory. So there's been a real mix of types of industries. And as we've been talking about with some of the incentives and federal monies and stuff that are out there, there's been a lot of opportunities for companies in the biotech industry with the sustainable aviation fuels, biogases and that type of thing that we've seen an uptick on. And as Lisa mentioned as well, there's a lot of that has some an interest in having renewables involved with that project. We've also had a company that's been looking for a green ammonia type project, which is also a process that we've seen a couple projects down the road that's happened. But our industrial growth primarily has been in the biotech. As you know, the Cargill campus up by the Blair is got a lot of stuff going on. They still have available land on site that they're looking to grow even more. Manufacturing is a big one for us, data centers, as we mentioned earlier. Food processing and ag processing are kind of our key factors in what we're working on. As you're aware, with all this large growth, there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be put in place. And so we've concentrated and worked hard to try to come up with potential ideas of how we can, speed up the process to serve some of these customers when we get some of our generation that we've had planned for years up and accredited through SPP. So now comes the part that OPPD has been spending quite a bit of our time on lately, is because of all this growth, we are trying to plan for the future. About 5-6 months ago, we started working internally with several of our departments, many of those that are out in the audience today, to determine where it is and how we can get this process going and build to be able to satisfy the customers that we serve with our responsibility to serve. So we put this plan together. We gave it a presentation, a recommendation to the board back in May of this year. In August of this year, it was voted on and approved by our board of directors to move forward with the near-term generation that you see up there today on the board. This 2.5 potential gigawatts of power, or 2,500 megawatts of power, has got several types of processes and platforms and types of generation that we're looking to put, with 1,000 to 1,500 of it being solar wind, up to 125 megawatts of 4-hour battery storage. We also are looking for resiliency purposes, 600 to 950 megawatts more of the natural gas. And then we have, because of the polar vortex type situation, we are looking to put into some of our peaking type plants additional fuel that can be used to potentially fire those plants in a situation where it's needed. Just want to point out that this plan is over and above the two projects, the natural gas projects that I mentioned earlier for 600 megawatts that was started back in 2019, and the 81 megawatts of solar that we're in the process of getting up and running soon. So for OPPD, it's an exciting time, challenging and exciting all at once. To be involved with the growing of Nebraska. I mean, you see sectors across all of Omaha and the metropolitan area, as well as our rural areas. You know, we got retail companies that we've never seen before. They're trying to bring companies like Fleet and Farm. We've got our downtown streetcar project that has popped up. We got an urban core committee that we partner with the Omaha Chamber that's looking at an area basically from the river to 48th Street and from Cummings Street to well, I can't think of where the other boundary is. But anyway, in that area, we're looking to potentially put more housing in. As like Lisa said, if you drive around Omaha, all over Omaha, not even in the downtown area, you see multifamily housing going up and also lots of new neighborhoods and stuff popping up all over the place. So it's kind of it's a fun time. Even in my neighborhood alone, I mean, I know this isn't a huge load, but it's something that you don't see too often, but a lot of transportation. My subdivision is by electric golf cart. So there's a lot of stuff going on with people electrifying and trying to do things that we haven't seen in the past. So we're looking forward to, we recognize this will take a lot of teamwork and partnerships, and we plan and prepare for development and future generation ahead. And thank you, and I'll take any questions at the end.
My name is Nicole Sedlacek. I'm Economic Development Manager at Nebraska Public Power District. I've been in this role about 2 years. I have been with the district about 7.5, and prior to that, I served at the local level as a local economic developer. So I've been in the economic development space for 15 years. And it's a really exciting time to be in this economic development space, to be in the utility space, because of what we're experiencing and seeing right now. A little bit about Nebraska Public Power District first. So we are a vertically integrated utility. We have 30 generating facilities in our footprint, and we deliver a little over 3,200 megawatts of diverse generation. We serve 79 communities at retail, 38 municipalities served at wholesale, and we also work in partnership to serve 23 public power districts at the wholesale level across the state. In partnership, we serve 530,000 Nebraskans in partnership with the other utilities that we serve. And we serve all or parts of 84 of Nebraska's 93 counties. So we do have a diverse generation mix that provides reliable, affordable, sustainable, and resilient power. 56% of our generation resource mix is currently carbon-free. The majority of that is coming from our Cooper Nuclear Station. We have 800 megawatts there. But we also have our Ainsworth wind facility, and we have power purchase agreements in 7 wind projects across the state, 2 hydro projects, and then we also have community solar projects in Ainsworth, Scottsbluff, Venango, Kearney, York, and Norfolk that help bring that 56% carbon-free mix to our system. So how is NPPD helping power Nebraska's economy? So I mentioned, that I've been in the economic development space for 15 years and at the utility for 7.5 years. And when I joined NPPD, I was really excited when I would be able to work a project that was 1 megawatt of new load. 1 megawatt of new load was really exciting to me. Economic developers were kind of in the chase for projects, and 1 megawatt was really exciting to me, coming from the local level to a utility. And how things have changed with what we are seeing today. I miss those 1 megawatt projects. They were a bit easier and not as complex as what we're seeing today. Several 20 megawatt projects, 30, 50. We've even received some RFPs at the community level that we're helping communities work on that have been over 1,000 megawatts. And so very, very complicated projects that we're seeing. NPPD's board of directors has adopted the goal of achieving net zero carbon emissions from our generation resource mix by 2050. So very similar to what you heard from LES and OPPD today. The passage of the IIJA and IRA legislation at the federal level has really been what's helped fuel this surge in the number of energy intensive projects that we're seeing in our footprint. We serve greater Nebraska, and we're primarily a rural area. We do have population centers of Norfolk and Kearney and communities of significant size, but we're primarily a rural area when we compare to LES and OPPD. And so it's really an exciting time for greater Nebraska with these projects because they bring incredible amounts of new investment, high-paying jobs to the community. And so there's really this great opportunity for Nebraska, again, specifically rural Nebraska, and the state's ag economy to help kind of bring these projects to fruition. We are seeing load growth coming from multiple industries. What has been interesting to just track and monitor these, when we have seen load growth before in our footprint, it was in the early 2000s with the ethanol boom. And that was really that industry when we were seeing that load growth. Today, it's across multiple industries. We're seeing it in the agricultural processing industries with soy crush projects, ammonia projects, in the bio space. Our footprint is seeing new data centers come online. We've got a data center in Kearney and one recently energized in York. The ethanol space is also seeing some resurgence and new technology happening there, allowing them to grow and expand and diversify. Our food processing industry is also growing here in Nebraska, whether it's in the pet food sector or we're seeing a lot of growth and interest in dairy processing. And so as other states in the country have clamped down on regulations and their business climate and their utility prices are skyrocketing, Nebraska has looked very favorable to the dairy industry. And we've had a team working that space for several years, a very collaborative team with Department of Ag, Department of Economic Development, AFAN. NPPD has been a part of that team to help encourage growth in that dairy sector here in Nebraska. And then our manufacturing sector is also growing. The shortage of workforce that was mentioned with our first speaker this morning, it's also driving industry to consider automation as a solution. And so we're seeing a somewhat shift in types of jobs. They're becoming more maybe technical with automation and software skills needed. So they're higher paying jobs, but as companies and our manufacturers are struggling to find those bodies to fill those jobs to produce the product they need, they still need that solution to be able to help them. So a little bit of what NPPD's summer and winter peak load history looks like. So here's a historical and our forecasted look. So we're a summer peaking utility with a little under 3,000 megawatts on our system. Our winter peak is slightly around 2,000 megawatts. Since 2013, NPPD has averaged 15 to 20 megawatts a year in annual new load growth. With expected projects coming online, we are expected to see that triple the next 3 years, but see it even grow more in 2026. So 2023, we have about 50 megawatts of new load that has come online or expected to come online yet this year. Next year, we're anticipating 76 megawatts. In 25, that number goes to 85. And then in 26, that number then increases to 300. So really over 700 megawatts of expected new load on our system. And most of these, again, are coming in that ag sector. We're seeing ethanol plants with carbon capture and carbon utilization at their plants, ammonia, and the food processing sectors. We have seen with the passage, again, of that IRA, IIJA, and just the activity space with that legislation, the number of projects that we've seen come in. So how we work is we have a dedicated business unit at NPPD, our economic development team, that works in partnership with the communities that we serve and in partnership with the wholesale customers that we serve to help them put together a competitive proposal. And so we're working alongside them and helping them identify sites on their system that could be served from a utility perspective. We're also helping them put together the data to show workforce availability in their area to attract to a project. And so we only work in partnership with that local community, that local wholesale customer to be able to try to attract that project to their service territory, their footprint. We really need that willing community that wants that project. And several of our communities and our economic developers are really in that game for projects. Even though workforce has challenged us all, business attraction, business expansion is still a critical part to the economic development space. We've seen a shift in economic developers also working on housing and childcare efforts and just simply people attraction, people recruitment to their communities. But that business development piece is still a critical piece to that economic development strategy in a community, a county, a region. And so we work alongside our communities, our local leadership, and our economic developers to help them put together a proposal to help them win and land projects. And so the last 18 months, we've seen this huge influx of nearly 80 projects kind of shopping around, looking across our footprint. And I would say in the last 12 months, that number just has grown. So we currently have 35 active projects that we're either expecting or growing in confidence on our ability to help land that project with that local community and customer. So it's an exciting time. But how is NPPD addressing the need for new generation? And I'll just leave this up just to kind of show that reference. And so we're taking multiple approaches to it. So there's a growing importance of energy management solutions and energy efficiency programs and demand response. And so we have seen a number of projects that have expressed interest in a demand response rate type product. And so NPPD did approve a rate that allows companies that if they're able to shift their load, they can participate in the market with a demand response program. And so they're viewed as a generator on days when they're running, and then when they're asked to be shut down, they have the ability to respond quickly, to power down, to meet that need, to help balance the grid. We're also focused on next generation nuclear and alternative fuels like hydrogen. We also have a phased approach of potentially adding 1,200 megawatts of new generation onto our system, whether that's through capacity purchase opportunities, it's with utility scale storage options, and also exploring the possibility of early renewable installation using the Inflation Reduction Act credits. We're also working in partnership with some of our announced projects as they've expressed the need for renewable carbon-free energy. We've worked with them. It really takes a collaborative partnership and effort to help them understand what it is that they're wanting to get out of their energy resource mix. And so we've went out with RFPs to secure new renewable generation for projects that have wanted that desire to be served 100% renewable. We also have seen the increase in behind the meter or behind the grid requests. And so we're taking approach of exploring that and really needing to find creative solutions to help make it a good partnership for the end user and then all of our ratepayers on the system to help make sure that no one is put at risk for that. All right, I think it's time for questions for us.
To start off, perhaps a little bit of a canned question here, but excellent job describing the load challenges coming up and how you guys are addressing that. Specifically with the context, of course, that we're at a wind and solar conference and looking at renewables being added. When we're discussing the opportunities that the federal programs that have gone into act in the last couple of years are adding to this and looking at behind the meter requests for generation and other items, what degree or what balance are you looking at of seizing that for direct pay or looking at partnering with private industry and enterprise to accommodate for those needs in the renewable space?
I guess we can just kind of take it down the row here. So I don't know if this is a great answer, but I think, again, flexibility and evaluating the feasibility of projects and collaborations on an individual basis is key. It requires a team of us at LES, just because we do want to make sure that we maintain our reliability as well as ensure that none of these projects negatively impact any of our other customers. So in terms of the IRA direct pay option, it's kind of too early to tell for us. We do have several folks at LES that are closely monitoring that and are sitting in on as many webinars and conversations as they possibly can to make sure that we're abreast of any of the changes. As a lot of you may know, that not everything has been settled as it pertains to the IRA direct pay option. So we aren't really sure what that's going to look like. And I think there's a lot of things that are still up in the air as it pertains to the complexity of the documentation that will be required, as well as the timing and the domestic production as well as potential penalties that we may not have control of at the time that we enter into some sort of agreement or contract. So we are watching it closely and we are evaluating it, but we're going to be cautious and ensure that we mitigate as much risk as possible.
NPPD, I would say, is also closely watching it and evaluating it. We have a special team that is staying abreast and trying to be informed and up to date as the new guidelines are published and posted. And so, again, very much what Lisa said, how NPPD is approaching it as LES is.
I think that both of Lisa and Nicole mentioned in the behind the meter type approach, we're also seeing a tremendous amount of customers that actually not even behind the meter, but want to use OPPD as their redundant resource and actually use the renewables as their primary. So there's been a lot of discussions and with potential challenges of SPP approvals and stuff with renewables. It's made things very interesting for the timing of that type of stuff. So I know with a lot of these projects are asking for this, them having certain guidelines or certain time frames that they have to have their stuff done by to get their incentives and stuff like that. It's definitely been challenging. So it's been quite a kind of a unique opportunity for us to work with those customers. The one thing about it is I think that the majority of them are receptive to potentially doing behind the meter type of solar installations or wind installations, but they also want to be close to where they're looking to locate. And that sometimes has been the challenge to be able to find the land or the property, as we know, with approximately 6 acres of 1 megawatt of solar, sometimes gets challenging. So I think that'll be something that's going to continue working with customers to try to come up with some of the solutions. So.
And perhaps a follow-up question for that is mentioned the industrial growth, and you said, Devin, that you've got a lot of requests behind the meter. Trying to find land is a challenge. When looking at seeing a lot more of industry being more renewable conscious, is that something that you're kind of just allowing the market to change, or is that something that you guys are encouraging or having open discussion with when new projects or additions to industry are coming in?
I think it's important. In my previous presentation, I was talking a lot about where we're moving forward with the utility when it comes to renewables. We have basically made a commitment to be able to use renewables and put a large amount of 1,000 to 1,500 megawatts of solar and wind in for purposes of our customers. But then there are these unique type outliers that we do need to work with. One of the things that I did not mention in my presentation, but our OPB board of directors or ELT team has also agreed to sell RECs. Also, we're going through that process. We're hoping to have some answers of how that's going to be priced and that type of thing by the end of the year. But that is something that we're looking to do as well from our perspective for our customers if they're interested in that type of environment. So.
I would just emphasize that we've kind of evolved. The utility space has evolved in, really involving our customers and listening to what they are telling us, what they want, what their corporate offices are telling them, as well as, moving forward on things that we think are going to work for the utility. We're making it a much more collaborative effort. It's always been collaborative, but we're hearing a lot more from our customers because I think corporations and businesses are much more informed than they used to be and are looking to make some changes from their perspective as well. So it's very collaborative.
I would agree with that we've got the partnership and the collaboration with the business and industry community. And as the projects are looking for wind and solar resources, and especially our footprint, we have seen kind of a growing number of counties maybe pass temporary moratoriums just so that they can put a pause and kind of look at things from a planning and zoning aspect. And so when we are working on a project that they do have maybe behind the meter requests or they're looking for that renewable generation piece to it, it's important that we are, really engaging the local community right away, if, on those wind and solar needs, as that could be a potential roadblock or challenge in the days ahead for this project to get online.
Thank you. I think we have time for a couple questions from the floor, if anybody would like to ask.
All right, so I have kind of the hardball question here. So mostly targeted at the OPPT gentleman. Given that you're constructing natural gas plants and there was recently a reopened coal plant, how are you actually going to convert the 2050 net zero pledge into 2050 net zero real? So I know it's a hardball question, but I appreciate the answer. Thanks.
So due to the growth and stuff we've seen, there was some changes that we had to make along the way to be able to, with our retirement of our nuclear plant, due to economics, not necessarily because it was a bad mix of energy. We had to go out and keep our coal plant, obviously in North Omaha, running for a few more months. But at this time, once we get, as we talked about, these natural gas plants that we're working on today approved, we'll be able to go back and take and convert the coal that we have at North Omaha into back to natural gas. So that's the part of that. I don't know if that's exactly answering what you're asking, but there's definitely there's definitely a mission to reduce the amount of coal that's being produced at OPPD for our customers.
Yes, that's like half the questions. The other thing is we are eventually going to need to cut the nat gas out totally too, because we can't really have net zero 2050 if we're still burning natural gas. And if we're constructing new plants now with the lead time and the lock-in, essentially, that's going to require those to be retired early. So is the hope then that either we're going to have sufficient battery storage online by 2050 that they can be retired? Are we betting on other energy sources? What's the plan to cut the nat gas as well?
I think this next, after our near-term generation, there's going to be a lot to look at to determine that. I know that Nicole mentioned the small-scale nuclear. OPPD has looked at that. Obviously, being a public utility, we'll make sure the technology is solid and the costs are appropriate before we move forward with any of that type of announcements or contracts that we would do at that time. But I think that would be part of it. And then also, like I said, just moving into more potential renewables and that type of thing in the future. It's a little bit down the road. I mean, it seems like it's a long ways out there, but I guess it is just around the corner, but 25 years or so.
I'd be interested in any thoughts you have in Nebraska going forward on kind of the optimal mix of wind and solar in a generation profile, given their different times of generation. And, yeah.
I would say that I personally, from LES, is probably not the proper person. I'm economic development and customer services and that type of thing. But we have a whole table of folks here from LES. If you want to engage them in a conversation after, we have our Vice President of Power Supply as well as our CEO right here at this table. So hit them up after this session.
I guess I would share that obviously with the wind and the solar, there's, obviously at the nighttime wind's blowing, or hopefully it is, and in the daytime, obviously solar, the sun's shining. So it kind of helps to have both mixes. The one thing that is involved with OPP that we're looking at is, as you know, there's accreditation of the resource. So like if you had a 100 megawatt nameplate type of a solar and a wind farm, you're going to get a lot more accreditation for the solar farm than you are for the wind farm, which under OPPD, under our situation we're in today, is probably more applicable to do than wind. But I know we still are looking to do wind as well.
A few years ago, the NPPD had the R project, transmission line project. Do you have any status update on that?
It is still in the process. John McClure right here in the front table can probably give the most recent update, but it is a project that we are anticipating to get some sort of guidance to start up again, but that has significantly been delayed. It's been a project that is much needed to help with the challenges that we see in the western part of the state, but We do anticipate some update, I think in 2024 with it to eventually be constructed, hopefully in the next decade. I would not be the subject matter expert on any forecast with hydrogen, but we do have a generation strategies group at NPPD that is looking at that, and would be happy to connect you with those individuals that would have a much better forecast of what that could look like.
All right, with that, we'll wrap up our panel. Thank you.